All right, let's get into the second lesson for the year H radio. Just let me just quickly change that. Uh, Journalist students should do this beforehand. I get that. H radio 1, 2, 3 part timers. Let's get into the second lesson now. We're continuing with the radio landscape. We'll do a recap in just a moment so that you know where we are. Also, hi, my name is Chris. Hope you are doing well. Hope you are also busy with your exercise from the last lesson, which was listening, or which is listening currently to 5 different radio stations. We said there, have a look at one of the Kahiso, the African entertainment ones, the Prime Media. We also said PBS, and I think the other one is a community station, right? And you're going to do that media log for me so that you can tell me what you came to, what you listened to um, in next week's contact. Not contact, it will be online, will always be online. But next week's lesson on Wednesday. Please remember, every Wednesday between 6 and 10 o'clock is when you have your lessons. And again, there is the WhatsApp group. If you just go on Call Campus, like you currently are, because you can't. I'm guessing where else can you access this current video? Just make sure that you join the WhatsApp group and get in touch with me, just to start the year in the right way. All right, so this was not a very long lesson. There is a bit of a recap, as I said there, but we are going to be looking at the digital space. So before we looked at the terrestrial area, or I say component, yeah, of radio here in South Africa, so community, commercial, and PBS stations. And now I want to look at the digital space. We specifically excluded it because it is a completely different um, area. We're not just talking about online. We also want to look at digital radio. I did mention the prospects of hopefully one day, changing over completely. But we also discussed some of the pitfalls and say the obstacles that do exist here in South Africa with our current infrastructure, just our socioeconomic structure and landscape, uh, being able to change all those receivers to DAB receivers is going to be quite a a difficult task, and it has to be for free. As you said, it's got to be government funded. I think we have a lot more important or more pressing matters that we have to look at as a country, and definitely the government has to address rather than looking at the prospect of DAB plus and digital mediums. But okay, I mean, it's in the works. Definitely, it's been in the works for, I think it's been in the works since 2018, 2019, as far back as that. I can remember attending Radio Days Africa back then, and there were discussions around it and startups and saying in terms of there was testing that was going on in terms of the implementation. SBC was going strong in terms of that and the initiative around that. Very obviously respected and appreciated. That at least we're not sitting in the dark. We are looking at those options. So yeah, just to kind of remind you as to what is digital or DAB, well, we're looking at a receiver that, I mean, if you even look at your TVs, okay, so this is something that I think everyone should know. I mean, it happened in 20, it must happen in 2020. It was three years ago, maybe 2021, where in March they like the SABC, the government, whatever it is, stopped analog, whatever it may be, right? Analog TV frequencies, so transmission. So they would come in, like they came in here at um, the complex that I stay in, and they adjusted. They put I think it's a transformer, like if the wording is correct, me and my technology terming anyway. But there's it's a little device that's connected obviously to the wiring that changes, it changes the analog to digital. So we've gone completely digital in terms of our TV transmissions. And, I think even you'll see in your own, I say in your own personal space. So, for example, with your family, or maybe your dad, your mom, or your parents stay, I don't know, they would have to receive also there's a new little device, almost like when you get your DSTV decoder, right? So the SABC says to you, or well, I mean they forced that it's supposed to be free, right? Okay, but I think it's about $600 where you buy it now and you get I think up to 11 or 13 channels, right? That on our it's now digital, right? So for example, you'll get SABC 1, 2, 3, you'll get ETV, then you'll get there's I think there's and I know I'm doing a lot of things because I don't really have one. I know that my mother was talking to me about theirs, right? And we had a look at the bouquet. There's music, as far as I know. There's maybe a news channel as well, a sports channel, but and then there are I think that there's an audio bouquet as well, but I know it's about um like 12 or 13 channels that come with this decoder that are now obviously under the SABC, obviously public transmission, right? Okay. So I'm sure in your own vicinity with your parents again, maybe in your own home, whatever it may be, you've also had to go and buy this particular little decoder, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to catch anything. Like you just get this white noise, this little blank screen when you're trying to, access one of the public channels, right? Anyway, so you can see definitely it's by no means no myth, and it's by no means anything that we are not moving forward towards. Okay, we've taken the basic foundations in terms of moving forward. Okay. All right. Once again, so for full time, Justin used to be here. Uh, Once again, so that you know, please press Jordan for your part-time lecturer because you're in part-time. I can get that. I get that. Right. And info. Right. Info at Christian Media.net. If you need to send anything, uh, but on the WhatsApp group, you'll also have the access to my number. So 72643550. Okay. So again, we're doing, it's a semester course, and please, that's the whole point of being at a private institution like Boston Media House. You have direct access and personal experience. Please, your lecturers are here to make this a obviously a quality driven experience, okay, and personal experience for you as you grow and you learn. So in this particular lesson, we're going to reference Next Level Radio, chapter 1. Here are the different pages from 16 to 32. Digital radio, radio outside South Africa. So internationally looking at America, Mozambique, Australia, Zambia, and Mauritius, right? As some examples, obviously we can't do everything around the world, but looking at some of the breakthroughs and where their landscapes are right now in comparison to perhaps where we are, so you can follow along. Please do. Your textbook has a lot of great information that the slides are just kind of touching on as well. And to recap, the last lesson was about commercial radio, community radio, PBS, format conditions of public broadcasters in South Africa. And then we had a very brief look, by no means anything in depth, for the BRC RAM numbers and how they differ across different sectors. There was a very small slide that showed you what the top three were in, I think it was 2018, 2019. But please go to BRC, I think it's brcsa.org.za, right? Let me just write it in there because that's, and then, yeah, www.brcsa.org.za for everything. It's a really cool site. It has all the reports from our RAMs figures, but also the TAMs as well, and you kind of understand what the VOC does in terms of numbers, right? Giving us providing stations with their numbers, how diaries work, etc., which you don't really have to know. Saying we go in larger depth, should I say, in the second year, and but for now, it's always great to have a little bit more information. Okay, so here we go. I mean, we have the analog signal, which FM and AM signals, right, with the little transmitters here going off to our radio sets. Okay, it's kind of like up downy. Very, it doesn't always look like that. That's obviously just a bit of a representation, right? Excuse me. But obviously the trouble with this is that within feeder areas, if there was a mountain, like here, for example, I live um, next to the Magaliesberg, so I live on the Magaliesberg Mountain. It sounds very glorious. I like to think it does, but it really isn't. I live in the poorer section, but the point is like I can't actually catch like a normal radio set. I can't catch, for example, 947. Bit of a struggle even with 942. So Jacaranda, uh, definitely have to squiggle about to catch five and Metro on a different, obviously different frequency because obviously they're national. And just because of the big mountain that is, it separates what they call the Burgos curtain because it's super Afrikaans, yeah, in the north here in Montana. Anyway, but yeah, so the thing is that the signals can't really surpass mountains, right? When digital, on the other hand, is able with the right transmitter and the right receiver, right? With our different zeros and ones and our little bytes here and bytes and bits that are being transmitted much clearer, um, much more controlled, access to a lot more stations. Especially let's say if we look regionally, like it'll be easier for me. Well, it's really directly easier for me to be able to listen to, like the bunch community stations that are in Gauteng. And there's also so many that I'd love to listen to, but just for example, specifically on the AM frequencies that are very, like I say, sect driven. Um, I am Greek. It's I like Hellenic radio. It's by far not at all the best radio station, right? It's a lot of work, whatever it is, doesn't matter. But it's quite nice to have the station. And there was a certain part, was a part in time. It was around COVID where the DJs couldn't actually spoke to the station manager. Yes, all Greek people, quote unquote, know each other. Yeah. Anyway, all right. So I spoke to the station manager. Her name is Tula. Anyway, and I was saying to her, like, what's the deal? I mean, how are you managing it from your side? None of the presenters could come into studio. We're coming into studio, and what they were just doing was broadcasting from Athens, right from the frequency, one of the major stations there was just basically being syndicated from this side. It was really nice. What I'm saying is, it was nice. With your own cultural sect, like it's really cool to um, just enjoy, and celebrate your own, I say, culture. So I mean, I would love to actually be able to listen to Hellenic radio on a DAB receiver, have it nice crystal clear because it was super dull, and it's really difficult to actually tolerate it, with a bunch of other AM frequencies as well. But it'd be nice, we live in hope and look forward to it. Okay. All right, so if you look at the radio sets, two modes of digital distribution. So we have obviously the data stream, which we're all familiar with, we all use, right? And we can use a really simple apps like Radio ZA that with all these streaming apps, it's made sure, and this was propagated, I'd like to think, by um, companies like Vodacom. I worked at Global Radio. They were one of the first to stream, quote unquote, stream their radio broadcasts, and alongside that was Cliff Central, right? Way back when, I think in sure, well, I was there, I think 2008, 2000, yeah, 2008. Anyway, and we know Cliff is 10 years old, so they were uh, what was it? What's that? 2014, 2013, whatever it may be. Right, doesn't matter. The point is that there's negotiation with the service providers to make it really cheap, so you can listen for like an hour on a stream across these different little apps that you have, and it can cost you, I'm saying data wise, maybe like 10 or 20, 30 megs, maybe, which is very, very, very small in comparison to watching, let's say, like a YouTube video, if you're not using it on data saver mode, right? Which will just eat it up, and watching reels on Instagram and TikTok, you're there, like you are moving from from data to airtime bundles and crying your eyes out, right? Get to that in just a moment. Let's look at the digital radio sets and the DAB receivers. So currently being tested in South Africa, as I mentioned, but it's not really utilized. So it's just not ready yet. There's a delay at government level as there are costs involved to devices that are needed to decode the signal. Decoder. I didn't say decoder, yeah. Anyway, these are more expensive than a traditional analog radio device, obviously, right? And there's what you are paying, like we said, just in TV, in the TV aspect or the TV sphere, what you are paying is for the actual device, like what you would when you I don't know, subscribe or whatever it is to DSTV, right? Anyway, there's not much difference between digital radio and FM radio. The content, I'm saying, remains the same. Uh, uh, yeah, okay. It also depends on how you now interpret the sentence, please. So I'm going to take it just from the digital aspect. It's the exact same thing, right? Obviously, there's no difference. I'm saying the radio station doesn't change, the transmission doesn't change. I'm saying whatever it is that they are airing doesn't change. It's just on another. It's just on another. Uh, I would say it's a different platform altogether, digital platform. Right. Excuse me. It's that morning throat. Anyway. Okay, anyway, so please, but it's not digital like online radio. Don't misinterpret that. Data streamed radio, internet, anyone can broadcast, stream podcasts from home. We obviously, if you want to do it, you need a computer, internet, and data. No cost of license currently required, and that's not going to change for a very foreseeable future. It's very difficult to control and it falls under the Information Act, which is completely different to where the radiosphere actually falls under. So the Information Act has to deal with things that are online, internet, whatever it may be, right? Well, it doesn't only have to do with that, but it is where it falls under. So that's the way that government can control what is going out and saying on sites. Like, for example, in the same breath, while you're looking at that, you're basically transmitting through a website, you're streaming through a website, right? So, for example, in the Information Act, it'll say like you can't put child pornography or sexual abuse or anything that's considered direct hate speech or whatever it may be. Like these are things that you will obviously be um, raked across the coals, arrested for, whatever it may be, right? So in the same sense, what we are putting up online is not you're not allowed to in podcast, you're not allowed in streaming, you're not allowed whatever it is. If you're YouTubing live or IG living or TikTok live, if you do any of these things, um, I'm saying even within those own platforms, they will come for you as well. Okay, the audience is now very fragmented, predominantly because people, one, don't know about stations. Also, when they listen to it, like the as we said there, Cliff Central has been the only station in South Africa. Genuinely, we had massive metros looking good, it was going great, and then it just completely vanished. I'm saying like vanished. The big names there that were involved, and then poof, like it just stopped. You know why? Because there was no funding, right? Gay Say Radio is still active. It's I think been seven years, which is very good. 2017, I think it was when it started, right? I started, so we started it together. I'm saying that I was part of the initial group there. So very proud that they're still carrying on, but it is completely pre-recorded. It's not like Cliff Central where you have live shows, you have live hosts, which is quite cool. Obviously, that's the joy of broadcasting. Uh, but um, but no one else. So Touch Central as well. I think it's Touch Central, right? Uh, on and off again, on again, on and off again. Content and creation of content can differ slightly from FM and AM radio because very different rules apply. You can swear. Yes, I know that sounds very childish, but the truth of the matter is you can bear very, very, very aggressive opinions that will not get you like to the BCCSA because it doesn't apply. It doesn't. It doesn't. That's why in podcasts you can be open and honest and you can take very extreme angles as long as you again not encouraging child rape, like pornography, that type of stuff, right? You're kind of in the clear. Okay, digital radio. So FM and AM analog signals are old. Analog radio um, it creates the sound waves. Okay, as you saw, remember the little graph that we saw a little earlier sends the waves to your radio, the receiver, the radio picks up the sound waves, and the quality is noisy, it's disturbed, there's static in the air, vehicles, buildings block sounds, mountains, right? We know this. Everyone knows this. Okay. So we are trying to improve on it with a digital signal, digital audio broadcasting, DAB, right, and DAB plus. So the FM signal is now digitized through again, it's a translate. Anyway, let me just keep quiet because I can't think of the technical term right now. Anyway, it's like a translator, I would think. Anyway, digital signal is transmitted, picked up by digital receiver or HR radio in a car or home. The quality, CD quality, no interference, more frequencies that you can catch, right? And digital carries metadata, so names of songs, artists, and other information or data, which are really important, which you find on stations that can pay for it already. If you're listening to the radio, predominantly the commercial stations, you will see if you look at your radio set and it's got like some kind of digital interface, and it's not digital, but it has a digital interface. It will spurt out the song and the artist name. So it's always nice because you listen to a song, you're like, oh, what is the name of the song? I forgot, or I'd like to know because it's new. It's really cool. Right. But anyway, this will consistently have this type of stuff that is describing oops, there we go. All right. Breaking things here. Okay. So if I go to page 18 and 19, um, I don't want to read the whole thing. It's a lot. Okay. So, but it is up to you to please also read it. It's 3 pages long. It's Ari Coleman is a great presenter or was a great presenter. I'm not sure if he was or is sorry is on Cliff Central. I was featured on one of his shows. Very great guy, good presenter. And he went and he wrote a little bit of an article on radio, right? Okay. So just to kind of read a little bit out to you, narrate a little bit here. It's likely that in time, cliffcentral.com will be recognized as the true pioneer of South African internet radio and a real disruptor, right? However, while disruption may be a fancy word to use in the boardroom, its principle often lies dormant in the execution phase of an organization and how it operates. While many may proclaim that they are disruptors, they're simple, uh, and the simple truth of that is that action expresses priority, as with many industry, or as with any industry, excuse me. It is usually the stalwarts who talk a great game, but rarely actually gamble with their bottom line. So let alone set and it is set alight. So not Gareth, obviously Gareth Cliff, we know is very controversial. When you say very controversial, he's been on a consistent level. He's been controversial. We know that. That's his claim to fame. A good presenter or all rounder. It was just a few minutes into CliffCentral.com's first broadcast of the Gareth Cliff Show on Thursday, the 1st of May 2014. And there we go. Okay, that the beloved former 5PM presenter said his SABC access card or a light as he traded traditional radio frequencies and quarter-hour traffic updates for binary code via the internet and established his own brand of radio content, which he describes as uncensored, unscripted, and unradio. So, very cool little piece there from Ari that you could and that you should, you know what I'm saying, read through, please. It's in your textbooks. That was started off page 18. Okay. All right. When you do read the example, I mean, think about it. Just think of like history in the making. Again, 10 years later to keep an online station going, you're paying a bunch of employees. I had a like obviously a friend of mine that worked at. She's not a friend. I love her. She's great. So her name's Dory. Dory was working in the online department and the digital department for Prime Media while I was still there. So and she was saying to me, "Oh no, I'm leaving Prime Media to go to Cliff Central," and I was like, "What? That's crazy." When Cliff obviously began, and I thought, "Oh my word!" Like I said to her, obviously, what are they paying you? Because it was bizarre. You have like an online radio station to be make money already. Obviously, he's got so his big partner is Rena. Can't remember her surname. Rena is well networked with a bunch of obviously clients. She also represented Cliff throughout his entire radio career. Uh, and she's a powerhouse. She was the one that brought in a bunch of obviously investors, whatever it may be. And well, going back to Dory, I was like, damn, like I mean, you are getting paid and a great salary back then in 2014, where she was like, "Oh no, I'm going. Cheers. It's better than quote unquote Prime Media." And I was like, "Wow." Um, I'm very impressed. And Dory's still there, man. She even does a show with another ex-colleague of mine, Paulo, and I think they were nominated for a Radio Award. Anyway, let me not carry on. You're like, all right, let's move on. Thing is a great effort by Cliff. No one would have been able to predict that. They would have just said, no, it's gonna peter out. Anyway, let's look at other radio stations around the world and just some stats there as well. Um, and how syndication actually worked. I think we'll see now with Rush. Um, it's great. It's quite great. So obviously praised the Americans because they started the first broadcast again in 1920. The USA has always been like the most competitive radio landscape in the world. There are just thousands of radio stations in obviously a 50 state country, which makes sense. That continent is massive. And there's a lot of people there, which means a lot of people need to be catered towards, right? Okay, a lot of community stations we get that, but even there's so many commercial stations. So yeah, I think in New York alone, there's New York City, eh? there's around about 100 commercial stations. That's insane because of the mass amount of population density there in New York City alone. Slash from New York State. That's crazy. 100 stations. We don't even have 25, you know? Anyway, the Americans are very, very, very competitive, again, being the forerunners as well. So are a bit of like a way to look as to how to do radio, you know, in terms of the semantics and structure and the innovation, whatever it may be. The formats vary so much from city to city and from, like I say, town to town, and dependent upon the demographic of the region and the ownership of the local radio station. So the formats differ in popularity as follows. There's obviously country music. Country music is the most popular music format in the world, right? That's crazy as well. When you hear that, you're like, wow. But country music is a very big format, and a lot can happen underneath there, or does happen underneath there. 13.2% of all radio listening. News talk is second with 12.3. AC adult contemporary is third with 8.1. Top 40, 7.1. Classic rock is fifth with 5.9. So the again, because the audiences are so diverse, like again, like I said, there in terms of like what the country is obligated to do is obviously offer a radio service, like a radio station that talks and communicates with every single ethnicity, right, and culture within the country. So we get a ton of Spanish Hispanic radio stations as well. We have Native American, we have, I mean, obviously African American centered, like they all, and I can go on. I mean, everyone stays in the States, right? Anyway, so just some things that you've, so the personal people meter, Nielsen uses devices. We know Nielsen metrics. Okay, so Nielsen, just want to go there before I carry on. So, largest and most universally recognized audience measurement by both broadcasters and advertising agents is Nielsen Audio, a division of the Nielsen company. Super famous, I mean, super well known. Like you can't be in radio and not know the brand Nielsen. Because they have, like I say, paved the way on how to basically measure and all. I'm saying everything that has to do about measuring stats and etc. and information around broadcasting. Nielsen went to pioneer that first. Anyway, the personal people meter, the PPM, they use the device. Okay, I'm not sure. I don't think I've spoken about the device. I spoke about it in the second years. Anyway, little device that people carry around, and it tracks their actions. You know, and picks up what stations they're listening to, and it feeds like real time information back to, you know, obviously Nielsen in this case. In 48 hours, sorry, it's in 48 of the largest cities to measure listenership, and it's obviously real time, but they have to wait for a year. Okay, so to get the metrics correct, syndicated content. So yeah, Rush Limbaugh, right? He was the first. He was the first to syndicate a show in America. 14 million listeners weekly. I think Rush has passed since. Uh, but that's insane. If you look at, so I worked for Ryan Seacrest, worked under his team to develop the station after the show for South Africa. 20 million listeners. Ryan is a powerhouse, man. National Public Radio's morning edition, 14.9 million listeners. So syndication, what does that actually mean? It means that it is actually the one show's broadcast from a certain city, whatever it is, and then many other stations. So, like I say, with Ryan, he would have, oh, was it? I think it was way over 35 stations around the world, including the stations in America that he would syndicate his show to, right? So does one show, everyone else listens to it. Very difficult to actually achieve well because remember, different people in different areas want different things. So when Rush went and pioneered this specifically. Like it was a big thing, especially about a talk show. Like talk shows, I mean, for talk radio, you have some extreme, um, I say, opinions and contributions from different people, but he made it work. It was amazing. It's great magic. Anyway, okay, challenges for radio. While the way in which consumers listen to American radio continues to change and evolve, popularity of the medium remains very strong. We're glad to hear. So let's quickly look at some of the rest. Again, statistics in Mozambique. Radio programs are the most widespread form of media in the country. The most influential are state-owned. People operating in the territory believe the media space remains in the hands of the politicians. Not great, obviously, right? A bit of a dictatorship there, or inferred dictatorship, because it's a belief, yeah, right. Access to information through mass media remains very low. So once again, just to enforce that dictatorship, low even in the case of radio. Only 34% of households own a mobile phone. Media is not viewed as an acceptable profession for women. Oh, okay. And there is a lack in recruitment and training of talented media professionals. Let's look at the other powerhouse, Australia. Very odd that Australia, a country saying that in the backwaters of the world, right? My sister stays down recently. I went last year to go visit it and or visit her and Australia. And I can understand why it's a first world country, very low population. A lot of Australia is just kind of uninhabitable. It's just way too hot and it's way too dry, whatever it may be. But in the cities, like it is metropolitan like galore. And the way that they do radio is so it's very different from the rest of the world. When I say very different, the way that they choose hosts, for example, the hosts of big shows, the breakfasts and the drives, whatever it is, are comedians, well-established comedians predominantly, that are over the age of 45, 55, even sometimes, right? And the thing is that these shows still cater for young audiences, and that perspective or perception of like here, which is it is incorrect. Like only that a young person can attract a young person to listen doesn't make any sense. Like if you are a person that can communicate and knows who your audience is, you must think of let's say a motivational speaker. The motivational speaker can be of any age, any race, any gender, whatever it is, and can attract many different people to what it is that they want to talk about. So one of the things is that they trust in there. They put a lot of money, a lot of um, investment in their personalities. I'm saying their DJs and their shows, but they also keep them around for a really long time because they know the value of building a brand and loyal listeners. And it works really well. And again, they've got great stations over there. Yes, some of the when you listen to it, because you like me, I was expecting massive things. I could obviously listen to Australian radio like I mean, you can stream it anywhere, whatever it is, and you can stream any radio station, right? But I wanted to be when I was there, I was like, because I wanted to also talk to some of the stations, which I did in Adelaide, where my sister stays, very open to discussion. Or if you are a radio professional, come on over. Let's have lunch. Let's have coffee. We want that kind of culture. It's very different. It's respectful to both, obviously, professional and to the public. Again, very particular product that the Australians have created there. It accounts for nearly two-thirds of all audio listening. Australian listeners are known to prefer more tailored and personable, right? Radio. Radio is seen as the most trusted and authentic media platform in Australia. So that's a good thing. It's with all of us. That's what radio is supposed to be. Australia has a strong commercial market, but also has a prosperous broadcasting community with over 450 services operating in both regional and metro areas. Um, big monopolies that hold about nine, maybe 12 stations under their brand. They're there, like I said, yeah, I mean the company itself, right? Um, Regional Australian areas are extremely socially diverse, leading to a variety of radio broadcasters as well that are hosted on the show. The radio ratings are conducted by an independent market research company known as Growth from Knowledge. Let's move on. Two more. So in Zambia, uh, Zamcomef has identified two problems that are commonly faced by radio, namely paying for programs and paying staff. Many volunteers leave because their positions are unpaid, which is understandable. I know that we propagate uh, this community is supposed to be. I'm saying community here. It could be in both sectors, right? But community, you're not supposed to get paid, right? But it is also difficult if you don't have someone paying for you. So someone supporting you, like let's say your parents, whatever it is. Again, when I was on campus community radio, like I mean, I had a waitering job, but we all know what students do with their money. So you drink, you go out, you party. You know what I'm saying? You buy food, like Chelsea buns and hot dogs and rubbish like that. But I lived with my parents, so I could go to the station every single day when I was doing, let's say, I mean, whenever I wanted to go, but when I was doing my shows, I could go quite freely, in terms of not worrying about needing that money for any other reason. We're all volunteers, right? So it's easy to say from the one side, but the thing is, like, you work in community right now, and the thing is that what you find is that a lot of our, as I mentioned before, community acts as commercial, so they should be bringing in money, which means they should be paying their staff right here in South Africa. And like a mass majority of obviously our community stations still don't pay their broadcasts, but demand like these are I say not students, they're adults with the bills to pay, whatever it is, and demand. Let's be like, oh, do a Monday to Friday show for me. We understand and empathize with uh, with these Zambian broadcasters. Listenership surveys are not conducted regularly. Also in 2014, maybe a little bit outdated. I'm saying this information. So at the time of writing the textbook back in 2014, many of the commercial radio stations are involved in collaborations with international broadcasters. Okay. Um, Mauritian or Mauritius, right? So Mauritian radio public broadcasters, or the public broadcaster, the SABC for them is the MBC, right? Okay, which generates 40% of revenue from advertising and the rest from licensing fees. Oof. Yeah, they only have four government-based stations and four private-based or private broadcasters. There's no data research available. It's very difficult. Be interesting to actually listen to some of the stations, see whether how they get their content on point. The BBC is also a main contributor to training at the NBC. Oh, there we go. So I act like I don't know this. I didn't know that. But local training colleges and universities supply supplementary material. There's the summary over there. For homework, please, there are many instructions here. Please complete activity 1B on page 20, 1C, page 34, and reading extra papers by Tracy Johnson, Elm and Lowe, Alexander. All the links are found in the textbook. Please to encourage growth and ownership of your knowledge. Then you need to go visit the ICASA website. Look up the license terms for Liguala FM, summarize the station's license conditions regarding content, ICASA.org.za. Listen to any of the Gareth Cliff shows, so the Gareth Cliff in the morning. List what you notice in terms of the difference between this radio show that you are listening to with Cliff and a traditional radio broadcast show of your choice. Focus on the use of language, advertising, music, and routine systems or segments. Do you think cliffcentral.com fulfills its brand promise of being unradio, uncensored, unscripted? All right. Good luck with that. Hope you found that interesting. Well, there we go. And I'll see you next week.